that was a big impact in the first game, but I think the other ones that'll remain, the Zac, the Caitlyn's, the generic 7-14 bans.
The very powerful picks, as it were. Braum was something that was taken off the table along with Elise by Splyce last time around. Cho'Gath was another one of those Phase 1 bans. Instead, H2K are pivoting to some of these picks that Splyce have used, having the luxury of being blue side. Means they can do a little bit more of the target banning, something we've seen pretty commonly.
And H2K seemed very comfortable even playing up against the Kalista, but you still don't want to let it go over to the enemy team, especially when you've banned the Rakan, because you can still pick up Thresh Kalista for the side of Splyce. Caitlyn still available. Macy H2K actually first picked that if it does make it all the way through the pick and ban phase.
I mean, Che had such a good game on Thresh. I wonder if they even consider that as a potential first pick, something that's not outside of the ordinary. LeBlanc's the final ban.
Cho'Gath as well, still around in this draft. That was the last ban in Phase 1 out by H2K in the last game. A lot of questions now on whether H2K will play the tank style or whether they're going to go in the same way where they had a little bit of scaling, a little bit of team fight coming from the top side.
And those answers will come thick and fast. Caitlyn, definitely first picked. As you mentioned, Stress, it was not banned away. Instead, it was Cho'Gath as the final ban. From Splyce, so now they need to prioritize where do they go. Braum was banned by Splyce in game number 1, and nobody wants to give Caitlyn Braum to your opposing lane. It is just oppressive.
It's oppressive, but another champion that does well with Braum is the Tristana. I expect to see Splyce maybe pick that up later, but Maokai earlier priority here. Had a conversation with Wonder earlier in the week about Maokai in the top lane, because LCK have been playing that a lot. We've seen that a lot in the jungle. It is a valuable flex here. On red side, you can now wait until this very last pick in order to decide whether you want Maokai top or Maokai jungle. Both are great.
Preferably jungle. I like to see Wonder on something a little more exciting. When I look down Wonder's champion list as well, not really a lot of tanks. Rumble, Camille, Fiora, Kled, Jarvan, Akali, Gnar, Jax, Kennen, Cho'Gath. You could maybe say 2 of those are tanks. I definitely like seeing him on those playmakers. And on the other side, H2K, they've stolen away that safe mid lane in Orianna.
They might be doing a later game draft again for H2K unless this gets locked in. Nope, just a bait again by Featherman. So this is potentially a later game draft out of H2K. Caitlyn, Orianna, this is a problem that has plagued H2K for a while, where they pick quote-unquote difficult comps to play, is what Prolly himself said. And now I want to see H2K draft an earlier game top laner, something that can get into the game before this Orianna and this Caitlyn.
Okay, early game top lane. I mean, Rumble's still up and available.
Yeah.
Something that Odo is just phenomenal on. Game 1 definitely was not played around top lane, much to my disappointment, because I really wanted to talk about Camille and Rumble, but it didn't happen. And you're gonna have that safe Galio again, another potential flex. So Splyce, keeping a real secret about how they want to assign their team comp.
And as you said, Trashy is the one that likes to play tanks. Wonder likes to play carry, so this would signal Senkuk's playing at mid lane. The summoners do change before they go into game, but right now it is set to a teleport for Senkuk's. So that might be another indicator that this Galio is going mid. I kind of want to see Senkuk's on lane dominant champions. I like the Senkuk's that was playing the Syndras, these types of things over the last few weeks. We talked about it in the last game. Maybe banned here. The Camille has gone.
Yep. Removed from the pool. Don't want to give that. So Camille, Rakan, Kalista, 3 champions that were played in the previous team comp are now off the table. Syndra's still up, by the way.
Yeah.
It would be into Orianna, so kind of a neutral lane, but
Syndra's still going to have the same effect Syndra has in most matchups, but you don't punish an Orianna critically hard. Like, the Orianna can still survive, get through to the team fight phase. Whereas this Galio, if it does end up mid lane, I feel like Splyce needs some sense of early game and also a scaling component to come out of this team composition. Tristana would match the scaling, and then I'd want to see a winning top lane matchup for Wonder.
Okay, Tristana's now banned away, so how do you pivot? If Tristana was going to be that pick, I mean, Kog'Maw maybe?
Yeah, Kog'Maw's one of them. Varus has okay anti-tank potential late game. Good in lane and good against tanks in general. Not quite so late game scaling when it comes to his ability to shred through, but you stack up blight stacks, you take him down. I think the Kog'Maw's the likely one here. Look, you've got such a strong front line already out of Splyce. And you saw Cobby's potential to stay alive in teamfights last week work very well.
It did indeed. However, that was game 2 with his Tristana, when it was a very even or very behind game, and he had a rocket jump and a buster shot. Keep himself alive.
Makes it a lot easier.
It does. It gives you some tools, right? And I'm just adding that caveat because game 3, where Cobby played the Kog'Maw last week, it was fairly one-sided. Splyce had a very good game. He snowballed. There's that Rumble. Again, no real surprises. It was the top laner you were mentioning. Stress, and of course that Urgot Hover. This is 7-14, not 7-15 where he debuts, unfortunately.
I can't wait for 7-15. As you said, that's next week. This Trundle could get locked in. It's a likely matchup into the Braum. I don't like it paired with Caitlyn. I'll get into why if it does get picked. Taric is another matchup. Could see. Okay, it's still a good pick. I'll get into it in-game why I think it doesn't synergize perfectly well with a Caitlyn, but has a lot of uses, especially against an escapeless AD carrier like Kog'Maw, and against that Braum with that resistance shred from the Subjugate. But now it's up to Splyce to fill in all of the pieces. We know they've got the front line. Some of that's going to get taken away by the Trundle in that ultimate. But where are we going in the top lane?
Well, Kled. Let's see whether or not Skarl and Kled can shut down Odoamne's Rumble. Not the first time we're going to be seeing this. Also 3 games played for Wonder this split. And Galio confirmed mid lane, Maokai confirmed jungle. So going with those EU traditions for the Maokai at the very least.
Well, when you look at it, Righteous Glory is great, Talisman of Ascension's great. What champion has one built in for the entire team? Kled, if you can get that charge off, get yourself into a fight, that's where this front line can set up against H2K. But we've talked about how H2K are trying to play around tanks already. They have disengage, they have scaling, they have a Trundle to remove the resistances. And if they can protect nuclear, they have that late game damage there as well.
Well, look, both of these teams, I think we can agree, have 2 tanks, right? You've got a Gragas and a Trundle on the side of H2K. You've got a Maokai and Galio on the side of Splyce. But you know what's better than 2 tanks? 3 tanks! And there's a Braum on the side of Splyce. So this feels a little bit more like the World of Tanks meta that we find ourselves in. And this could also produce some very juicy team fights later in the game if both of these teams remain in an even keel. A lot of tankiness to go around, a lot of options to go around, especially with Trundle stealing away whatever Maokai and Galio builds up.
Yeah, that's, that World of Tanks meta is in effect. Does that mean the Corki meta is World of Warplanes?
Could be. But there's not a lot of other people trying to shoot him down. So it's pretty one-sided, right? As we load up into game 2, Splyce need to bounce back against H2K. The #1 seed in Group B is at stake in this very game. And as Splyce go down 0-2, it hurts their game difference and it puts them even further away from the Unicorns of Love, who are still ahead. Stress, expand a little bit more on why you're not a huge fan of the Trundle-Caitlyn synergy.
Sure, so Caitlyn loves laning phase, loves to dominate laning phase, loves to push. Trundle hates laning phase. Not very useful in most situations. When you look at the pillar, it's good at catching AD carries that can't get away like a Kog'Maw like this. This is where it can be good. Gonna maybe burn a flash. I think actually Cobby can run away from this.
Not enough damage pretty early on. Cobby with the swagger. Going to be able to recall as well, but I think it's a great demonstration of your description.
Right, and it's not so bad that you would never want to pick them together, but we saw this yesterday in some of our games where it was Caitlyn Trundle in the Mysterious Monkeys Vitality series, where it just left a lot to be desired. Trundle doesn't accentuate Caitlyn's laning phase any, and Caitlyn doesn't really want to let Trundle go and roam all that much.
Yeah,
we'll see how they play this out in this game.
All right, let's see how Nuclear and Shay handle themselves. As we've said, a very good reactive bottom lane. That's something they've demonstrated over the course of the 2017 season. But in game 1 of the series, extremely powerful when supported. Jankos' Gragas enabled them with some good vision, and Shay on that Thresh definitely helped out the team. So Senkax
he got all 5!
And steals every single mini Raptor.
He got all 5 small Raptors. That is going to put Jankos so far behind. That is exceptional, just from 1 Q out from Senkax. So we now have to track Jankos and how that affects his early game. Remember, he's trying to get to 6 on this Gragas. Trashy's already on his 2nd camp now, on this Maokai, already level 2. That could be huge.
Well, it could be pivotal indeed. Let's see how slowly Jankos is to level up and farm and clear out that jungle. Definitely one of the cleanest invades. Not the first time we've seen it. One of the most effective. Che's going to get stunned up by that concussive blows passive of Mickey's Braum. And now Senkux is on the invade again.
He's going again.
Now we're going to see what sort of Wings of War steals he can take down. Shay gets chunked out. Here's some of this counter synergy we've talked about. Mickey blocking every single shot Nuclear's putting down. The stun comes out. 200 hit points left as Cobby's forced to peel away. 2 more shots will stun up Shay. Summoner heal's been used. Cobby's now fighting an army of H2K minions. Mickey retreats back to his own cannon minion, and they end up trading exhaust for heal.
Very back and forth early game trade in the bottom lane. You mentioned how it was the minions that ended up turning it back in favor of H2K, at least on the chase. One of the difficulties with Kog'Maw in lane is you're really aiming to trade while your Bio-Arcane Barrage, the W that actually gives you the extra attack range, is available, the extra damage. That's when you want to try and chase people down. Unfortunately for Cobby, that exchange was so long, they ended up treading closer to Nuclear than he wanted to, and that's why they took a lot of damage on the back end.
All right, Chase still playing very far forward, puts down the Pillar of Ice. Level 2s are plenty, 22 CS for Nuclear. He stood on top of a wave and a bit, so Cobby will at least close that gap by around 6 if he gets all of them. And as it stands, the Caitlyn, as in every Caitlyn lane, has an early advantage to begin with. And we need this Kog'Maw Braum to get a few levels, maybe an item or two, and then they can push back with their CC and their damage, and they synergize a little more naturally together.
Yeah, we'll see that impact happen around 2 items for Kog'Maw, more than likely. Senkux is very active on the map in this game, heading up towards the top side. We saw his 2 invades already. It translates into a triangle of wards through the top side. One of them actually just died on blue buff. That Splyce, we're trying to just track Jankos very early. He's still level 3. And we're past 4 minutes in the game, just about to hit level 4 of this camp. But Trashy is still ahead. That means Trashy might be able to get into a lane, maybe even have the ultimate available for a skirmish just that bit earlier than Jankos and really have that impact that we know Maokai can have.
Well, I'm looking at the minimap as it stands. 2 camps available to Trashy to clear out. Got himself the Gromp and those Merc Wolves that he can go to clear out. And Jankos with some interesting pathing here. Uses the Blast Cone over the wall. Gonna find himself a Scry's Bloom. That's gonna... Actually, I think that just missed Trashy.
Yeah, he spots him now as he turns the corner. Nothing really to fight over, and considering there's a Bami Cinder already through here for Trashy, Maokai's trading for damage isn't great, but his sustain that he gets back during the fight because of his passive, you can't really overlook. The same if you fight around camps, he can crowd control, but look, Jankos trying desperately to get anything that he can, actually gets the smite off there.
And look at both of the lanes for H2K are pushing. Febiven has shoved Senkux under tower, Nuclear and Chase shoving Cobby and Mickey all the way forward. So if anything were to break out, at least the H2K lanes could respond, and there'd be opportunity cost. There'd be CS and experience that Splyce laners would have to give up. Now, Trashy got that point and click CC. Gonna start moving forward. Justice Punch comes up, and the Duran taunt not gonna pop.
And Senkux at this point has already recalled once, as has Febiven. But Senkux, because he had TP, that's how he's maintaining a CS lead right now. He went for that Dark Seal after the Corrupting Potion start to make sure that he could just get as much sustain in this lane as possible. Looks like he didn't actually use all of his money the last time he bought, so he actually is 300 gold up in his person already. We'll see what that translates into when it comes to itemization.
Oh, Shockwave actually, I think, dealt the damage there. Didn't quite see as Senkux jumped off screen. But stress, Jankos is level 5. That early invade on the Raptor actually ahead of Trashy. So it did not end up hurting him as much. He's been able to farm his side of the jungle as Trashy's just hit 5. So pretty even game. Even laning phase thus far.
It's all from that commit on the bottom side there from H2K, making sure that they could smite away that one camp. Senkux did have the time to recall there, goes up, picks up the Catalyst, and will be looking to kind of just sustain up even more at this point. Senkux on this Galio is not going to do much until he can get into fights. And speaking of fights...
All right, Cobby gets knocked up by the Pillar of Ice. Stuns available for Che and Nuclear. Che's the man that gets dropped down. Ignite's still available to him, and Mickey's pretty low. but there's an exhaust and heal on the side of Splyce still remaining.
And this is perhaps one of the better matchups. Talking about Caitlyn Trundle, the fact that Cogmore doesn't want to use his flash, because as soon as you do that, you basically die to the next time a pillar comes through. It's actually a decent matchup. You saw the amount of damage that Cobby just had to take there because he was far away from Mickey. It's a good usage of this bottom lane out from Nuclear and Jay.
Well, looking at the bottom lane, Jankos is now making his way down. Explosive Cask is available. Trashy does not have Nature's Grasp, and he will be late to this. Tower dive, opportunity available. Jankos decides not to pull the trigger. I'm going to go back to the Game 1 story that we were really trying to push. Mickey, under some pressure, Shay down to about 400 HP. Stand behind me, gets Mickey to safety. But in Game 1, first pick Kalista, Splyce showing how much priority they have for Cobby. Game 2, it's a Cogmore and a protect the Cogmore comp. I mean, you've got Maokai, Galio, Braum, Kled that's going to be trying to distract some of the damage dealers in H2K. I mean, all of these tools are, hey, Cobby, we've got to keep you alive. You've got to win this for us.
We're not expecting to win the lane, unfortunately, and that's the sacrifice that Splyce give away, is you don't want to win this. It's why that in bot lane, Caitlyn is 2 waves ahead right now. That's okay for Splyce. It's acceptable if they can be winning elsewhere, which is recouping the gold lead, and a lot of it's top side. You can see Wonder charging in, actually.
All right, Senkax has got
the ult.
Grand entrance. Wonder's running all the way down, and Odo quite literally walked away. Not quite the anticipation we were hoping for.
No, especially when you get that big da-da-da-da, and suddenly nothing happens from it. Feels like a bit of a waste of the first charge of the game, but Wonder was trying to get the first kill. But that's going to become important in the team fight setup. That mobility for the rest of Splyce to run forward. You get Senkax jumping in, everybody ends up in the fight. As long as they peel for Cobby as soon as he gets there, that is the key factor in this composition.
Well, you talked about the laning phase. We're getting to 10 minutes into laning phase here, Stress. Plus 10 CS for Nuclear, plus 10 CS for Senkax. 5 of those are Raptors from earlier in the game, so you need to just factor that into your equation.
Keep that in mind. That's going to be integral when we're looking for a flame horizon later, Trevor, those 5 Raptors.
105 is the magic number that we're going to look for then, although by that time in the game, it's a little bit late and the story's a bit weird.
It's okay, you can ask your friends, the stats team, to count how many little Raptors he takes.
Oh my word, we actually have a replay of that? Oh, I love the observers so much. I can't believe we've got a picture-in-picture of the Raptor steal.
Beautiful.
Also, no first blood, so this is probably why they're preparing that replay.
They're getting bored up there.
But I want to say that for Splyce, one of the things that we've always talked about is this is the team that traditionally beats squads lower in the standings, so teams ranked 4th and 5th, and most of the time loses to teams ranked 1st and 2nd in their group. It's something that's happened a lot, and it might happen again. I will continue that in a moment as Tower First Blood is picked up. Senkax gets knocked to the side by the barrel, still has flash available, holding on to it. Justice Punch may get needed, flashes away. Jankos follows up, and Senkax maybe a little too greedy with that flash.
There's a lot that just happened over the last 30 seconds. First of all, Splyce swapped to the top side to get out of a losing matchup to make sure that they can get anything from it, trying to trade tower for tower. Now, H2K recognize that. Take bot tower and then look for a play in the middle lane with Jankos, because now they're trading 2 towers for 1. The important thing is with Senkax locked in his lane, he had just used his teleport, nobody there to assist him because Splyce had committed to the top side. Good play by Jankos and Febervan to make sure that they come out ahead on a situation that should have been even. Look, Senkax teleports in, and it's easily read here. Justice Punch came through, and Senkax got baited into that because he thought Jankos is on the bottom side of the map, and from there, easy kill.
Oh, that sucks so much. Donating first blood at the cost of your TP, at the cost of 2 towers to 1, and H2K all of a sudden now have a 1,500 gold lead. That's definitely not the way you wanted to start Game 2 in the series.
Especially not with how Game 1 went.
Yes.
When it was this more significant lead than this at this point for H2K, but still.
I'm so glad you talked about that lead, Stress, because I have a quick stat for you.
I knew this was coming.
At 15, thank you. I got to cheer for that. There's one guy there with the Thundersticks. At 15 minutes in Game 1, H2K had a 4,300 gold lead. Did you know that 62% of that gold lead was in Nuclear's back pocket? That's how far ahead he was, and that's my quick stat.
No wonder he wasn't jumping very far. It was very heavy to carry that amount of gold around. Trying to just show it off like you're Floyd Mayweather.
Well, we'll see whether or not Mayweather can land any blows against McGregor. Don't think that
Probably a lot.
Oh, we'll see,
I'm a fan of both of them, but probably a lot. But there's a lot of blows that have been landing in this series so far. Not in this game, unfortunately. 1 kill on the board from H2K from that good setup from Jankos. And consider that Jankos was pushed behind early. He's recovered very well here, looking very active with the rest of H2K.
I'm just so impressed with how H2K are pressing their advantage. In game 1, it was unlocking the AD carry. Now in game 2, with that mid and bottom tower falling, look at the mini-map for vision. H2K have got multiple wards in Splyce's jungle, and they are stamping an authority on the game. Now, can H2K escape this fight? Nature's Grasp from Trashes is a perfect place to throw it down. All of H2K are locked up. Hero's Entrance comes down, and Splyce are running for a little bit of their lives. Mickey and Jankos now trying to trade back and forth. It's Mickey that goes down first. H2K yet to lose a member until Che goes down. Senkax in the back end has shut down Nuclear. Oda Wonder is overheating. Skorl is still alive. Wonder's riding him to safety. And Splyce get themselves 3.
Oh, very close team fight out of both teams there. You can see Splyce engage and then bring in Wonder. Cobby was untouched.
Wow, there we go. Wonder's going to use Skarl as the barrel takes down Kled. H2K lose 4, Splyce lose 2, and they get some chip damage on that tower.
We talked a whole lot coming into this week about why picks like Maokai were difficult to play against, and watch Trashy go in. He knows how much of this area he can control with his ultimate. Look, everybody from H2K is in trouble. In comes the charge from the bottom side. Damage reduction from the Galio is just eating up so much time from H2K. 4 members having to fight off Wonder and Senkax, and look at this very timely Skull reappearance for Wonder. He was very nearly dead there as Odoamne was overheated and running away. Easy chase down on the rest of that fight in Splyce. That's the team fight they needed to get back into this. It's dangerous to fight against this composition, and H2K thought they could, but didn't quite have a big enough lead.
Jankos able to shut down Wonder right at the end, and in the midst of all the fight, Cobby spent a lot of time dancing on the periphery of that backline. He was in the river. You see 2,200 damage, Senkax 1,600, and that means Splyce, they close the lead. Nearly 15 minutes, they're still a little bit behind. Wonder's bear trap on a rope, does not pull in Odo, and there was some support there from Senkax as well.
The 3,500 damage just about that Wonder did, 3 1/3, that Wonder did was the important thing here. We talked about in the draft, they needed earlier game damage. They were drafting for late game with a tanky utility mid laner with tanks in every other position other than top lane, and Wonder had to carry the early game. Look, he's got Black Cleaver, now got the Tiamat alongside it, in a position where he can actually have impact in these fights, and that's exactly what Splyce needed to show, and now H2K will be a lot less ready to team fight. They're going to back away now and wait for this Caitlyn to come online.
Yeah, Infinity Edge for Caitlyn so far. Blade of the Ruined King not yet completed for Cobby. He's still down 20 CS. But I think important to note, now we're heading into this phase of the game where Chase Trundle starts to become very impactful. He has the ability to steal resistances, but he can only do it on one of Splyce's tanks. So H2K need to prioritize the right targets, need to use it at the right time, be on the same page, or Trashy Senkax and eventually Mickey will be able to withstand some of this damage.
And it's good in theory, but that means you're in a team fight against them already.
Yeah.
If you are already fighting this Splyce lineup, chances are Trashy has already used his ultimate, had the impact that he needed to, and locked down enough of the H2K members that Cobby is outputting damage. So that's the difficulty, is Trundle is great against tanks, but isn't great in team fights alone.
So let's see whether or not Cobby will get that support in those team fights, Stress. When you see the setup, when you see vision, not a lot of control wards on the map. Defensive ones, at least from Splyce. Wonder's using Skull to his advantage. Goes down the charge, actually. Skull decides to run. The pocket pistol comes out, and Senkax, with a not-so-heroic entrance, saving Wonder's life. And they'll get themselves an equalizer for a heroic entrance and a charge.
That leaves mid tower quite vulnerable here. Look, Senkax has actually left there, used that ultimate so they know he can't use it to get back. However, H2K may be overcommitting. The charge wasn't available either. Senkax is trying to come through the side, has his flash available if he can taunt flash maybe, but doesn't want to commit doesn't know exactly whether Odo Amne could teleport into that situation as well, and they don't want to do that while Wonder maybe isn't ready.
Yeah, and of course, talking about being ready, H2K were not ready because the top wave was pushing heavily towards them. Wonder pushed down bottom, H2K prioritized mid, so somebody had to catch that farm, and that somebody was Nuclear. He's moved back, and Cobby, Mickey, Trashy, they're going to start shutting down the Rift Herald. A little bit of a response here from H2K, but I feel like it might be too late. Slowly, drips and drabs, getting closer to Herald. Herald's not going down very fast, though, so Nature's Grasp used just to secure the objective.
It's to clear out the chase path from H2K. They cannot close the distance. Splyce didn't want to have to commit Wonder's teleport here. They want him to push on the bottom side. This is the playstyle Splyce have been playing very well, is 1-4. Wonder pushes the bottom side now, tries to get the tower, recalls out. But there's nothing H2K can do about this, even with Wonder doing it in vision. Yeah. There's really no response.
Well, no response available, and that means H2K will not extend their lead further. 2,000 gold as we get close to 20 minutes. Big items starting to be picked up. Yankos with Knight's Vow, Leandries for Odo, Zeal for Nuclear, Blade of the Rune King now finally for Cobby. So, you know, we're starting to ramp up. We're starting to get closer to the mid game. But for Splyce, with their team composition and the gold deficit, that's not a big surprise. But it doesn't feel big enough to be worried yet.
It's an acceptable position for Splyce to be in. With this composition, it's an estimated one. It's a calculated risk that they're looking for. Because once they get, for instance, the Gwinsu's Rage Blade on Cobby, he's going to be miles ahead when it comes to damage output in teamfights compared to Nuclear. Even Febiven may not be able to match him without a perfect shockwave. So Splyce will say, look, we don't mind being behind in gold because our team fighting is so exceptionally strong with this composition that we're just relying on Cobby. Now that is always a risk, because if a Gragas ultimate or a Trundle Pillar or a Shockwave hits Cogmore and nobody is there to protect him, then Splyce basically lose any team fights because they don't have any further damage output outside of Wonder.
So much pressure, but it ties in. Splyce are banking on Cobby's ability this split. There's a little bit of trading on both sides as Yankos gets chased down by an Evil Kitten and Odoamne gets chased down by an Evil Kled down in the bottom lane. But Wonder 2-1 and 2 doing well at just keeping Odoamne locked into that bottom lane.
You mentioned the pressure there is on Cobby. I think that's part of the reason why I said coming into this that I rank him in my top 3 AD carries, because I think last week under pressure he did perform very well positioning-wise in team fights. Even with a Tristana with a jump, there were so many times he was potentially under threat that he was very smart on his positioning. And that's what I want to see happen again as we get later into this game. Unfortunately, we are at a pause right now. We'll get an update as soon as we can. But we just crested the 20-minute mark. This is the point where Splyce should be at their strongest, just in the next few moments.
Terrifying thought. Terrifying thoughts, and whether or not they'll be able to use it. You can obviously see Yankos on stage chatting away to our referee and our QA team. And this is a tense moment in the game. We've talked a lot about the mechanics of this particular game, but as a reminder, it's 3 weeks left until the end of the split. We're back into your own intergroup play. H2K, Splyce, and Unicorns of Love. Yes, first place gets you that semi-final bye. But what I think is more important to talk about is if you finish second or third, your chances of facing G2 in a quarterfinal are significantly higher.
And nobody wants to face G2 in a quarterfinal and go out. With standings, if you extrapolate and assume Fnatic will take first in Group A, if it contains that way, that means G2 are likely to be second, and third place in this group will be the ones that matches them. In my estimation right now, I put Unicorns in that spot because I think Splyce have been on the up and up. Even with game one being such a dominant game for H2K, I think Splyce still are looking very strong.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that that is locked, because they're tied right now. H2K and Splyce are tied. Splyce could still jump up to first in the group, but H2K have been looking great themselves.
They have, and both of these teams have really demonstrated a great ceiling when it comes to performance. I do have an update for everybody. Yankos is reporting a movement-related problem with his champion Gragas. The league operations team are busy investigating. As our league officials check out his screen and check out his footage, I'll give you guys updates. It's not, well, I mean, my first quick stat completely bombed because it wasn't very exciting. This one's going to be equally disappointing.
It's okay, though. The crowd on the last one were really hyped for it.
What is the win-loss?
Okay.
What is the win-loss for Splyce when they are behind in gold at 20 minutes? All right, what is their win-loss?
What's my tolerance on this? Do I have like plus or minus one game?
I'll give you plus or minus one.
I'm going to say 2 and 8.
See, I can't believe it. I think he screen shared. It's 2 and 7. Splice are 2 wins.
The tolerance.
So congrats, Stress. Congrats. You managed to get it within one game. Actually, within half a game. So I'll give you one on each side. But yes, that just means Splyce as a team in the 9 games that they have been behind at 20 minutes, they've only been able to turn around 2. That's not a great percentage-wise. However, their team composition is kind of designed to be like that. So that is a tool that falls into their favor. Nobody wants to play late game against a Cogmore with Galio, Maokai, Braum.
Absolutely not. That's terrifying. Like I said that this is going to be the strongest point, but that's maybe comparable to H2K. H2K will be at their weakest, Splyce will be at their strongest very soon. But Splyce will continue to just stay strong with this Cogmore. Every item does just add that extra bit of late game damage. I think it's very interesting, though, their playstyle when behind with this split push and the 1-4. We saw in Game 1 how difficult it is to execute from behind, especially against a team like H2K who are very active around the map. So I think that's why you see this disparity of when they are behind, they tend to lose.
Such a difficult situation. And let's see whether or not this pause starts to impact the squads. I mean, we focused a lot on Splyce in this game, because they're the team with the pressure, right? They're behind in the series. They just got crushed by H2K in Game 1. It was an elegant display of how to win. And it's that display that's kind of given Deficio a little bit more hope. As why he's predicted them. It wasn't exactly a conviction, strong vote for them to win the group. But it was there, and we need to see whether or not H2K can close this game.
Yeah, they've done a great job in the early game. You can see Nuclear ahead 30 CS on this one. You can even see us right now as I'm reading off the screen how far ahead they are. 25 CS in the middle lane too. This has been a dominant performance on a team composition that still has these scaling components to it. The Caitlyn, the Orianna, these things that will come on later in the game. So H2K, despite the fact we're saying the Splyce are going to be strong soon, H2K is still looking very strong in their own right, and you can't discount that at the point of the game we're in. 20 minutes in, Baron has just come online. And
let's see whether or not Baron is impactful. I do have an update for you guys. We're loading back into the game. League officials have reviewed the footage, and while a bug did impact Jankos's movement, it was not sufficient enough to warrant further steps. So we are just jumping back into the game, and we'll keep a close eye on Jankos, and whether or not that pops back up, hold thumbs that it does not. If that's a saying anywhere else in the world.
Hold thumbs.
Yeah, I don't know why. It means good luck, apparently. But that might
maybe in a fight, but you're not meant to hold your thumbs.
No,
because then you like break them.
Yeah, I don't know why it's a good luck thing. But I'll have to ask my mum. Maybe it's a South African thing. Anyways, we're loading back in. Quick summary. Around 2,000 gold is the lead for H2K. They had some early game plays that were good, but Splyce, with their ARAM style comp, doing inverted quotes, commas, have managed to get good team fights.
It's a little bit more nuanced. I know a lot of people are liking to say, oh, ARAM, you see a composition with Maokai. The split push with Kled is such a big part of this composition alongside. Here's the Maokai ultimate. This is actually being used very early, but it's all to try and secure the tower. But look, H2K can defend this, and now Splyce are without their fighting comms.
All right, there's a bit of damage onto Senkex. He steps on a trap, cannot afford that. Mickey, stand behind me, and Unbreakable buys some time. There's a near unforgivable mistake in the melee. Equalizer comes down. Mickey's almost roasted alive. Chase trying to run him down. Flash and Ignite available to him. H2K defend their tower, get 2 flashes, and push Splyce back.
Just as I'm saying Splyce's composition isn't about ARAM, there's that one guy that pops Maokai ultimate in the middle of nowhere trying to get a play done, and Splyce grouped 5 members. They didn't need to commit all of those ultimates because the likelihood of getting that tower was very low. H2K had grouped behind it. Rift Herald didn't have a wave alongside it because H2K had cleared it out. So Splyce trying to commit while they had the Rift Herald available. It was going to time out soon, trying to get anything done, but they did just use a lot to try and make a play that ends up fizzling.
Yep, ends up going nowhere. I like the itemization here from H2K with a second Leandri's Torment. I think all of the HP and all of the, tankiness on the side of Splyce, Leandri's will do a good job at least initially burning them down, working on some of those high HP targets. All right, let's see, what are H2K up to? Setting up some vision for Baron, because that's going to be the potential next objective to play around.
Yeah, and you look at H2K's ability to set that up. They can control the vision around it. They've already got control wards down the river. The mid tower stands, so everything is good for them. You mentioned itemization. Jankos picking up double null magic mantle. He's like, just give me any magic resist for now so I can resist some of the damage that comes from Cogmore. Of course, the Bio-Arcane Barrage does apply magic % damage, so that's why, one of the reasons why Jankos has opted for that. But you can see Senkux has already tried to account for some of the magic resist. That Abyssal Mask, the Aura, trying to make sure the increased magic damage 10% to nearby enemies. So that'll assist Cobby's damage output at the same time, because Senkux is going to be right in the mix of things.
Yeah, absolutely will be, especially with that heroic entrance. See whether he prioritizes Wonder or Cobby in the team fights. I guess it depends on how it started. But as this top outer turret is going to drop to Febivin, I want to quickly look at the CS numbers. It's plus 30 in favor of Wonder, plus 40 in favor of Febivin, and plus 30 in favor of Nuclear. So very big CS leads from H2K that has stemmed from their team composition and from the laning phase, and from that early power.
And this is one of the difficulties that I have of Galio mid right now. I still think it's a fine pick. We see it a lot commonly in LCK, but you tend to defer a lot of presence from the middle lane. You can end up losing your tower quite early. As soon as you roam elsewhere, teams can set up a play against you, just like H2K attempted to here. It was Senkux teleporting into mid lane from recalling that actually ended up killing mid tower for H2K. And it's one of those things that you don't offer damage as Galio. All you offer is frontline and crowd control. But look, Cobby caught out now.
Oh, Cobby's going to get deaded if there's more damage to follow. The flash and heals bought enough time. Damage reduction from Hero's entrance delayed the inevitable. Nature's Grasp comes down, catches out H2K. Splyce are caught up, but they've got no real damage to follow. Wonder has lost Skarl, and the winds of war will not blow in Splyce's favor.
Splyce lose Cobby to start the fight. That is the one thing that cannot happen with this team composition. H2K take him out immediately and now turn towards Baron here. The teleport is available for Wonder. He did recall, which means he has Skull available for this next fight, but that ward is going to get cleared out. There are no TP wards available, and he has no charge. So he's just running back out of the base. Cobby is coming too, but look, H2K are a little bit low. Mickey and Trashy are denying them the Baron attempt for as long as possible.
Oh, the body slam carried over to Trashy. Here comes Wonder. H2K have got a numbers advantage, but Cobby is waddling his way through. Teleport's available for Senkux, and do Splyce fancy themselves another shot at the Kings of Group B? The answer is no. And Splyce, man, Cobby got caught out. The one thing that Splyce could not afford. Not enough vision and just surprised here.
Yeah, Jankos catches him from the river. Great explosive cask. And look, they think Cobby is safe, so Mickey, Senkux, Wonder all commit to the front fight. It's only after the TP channel completes that Mickey says, oh no, I've actually got to save my AD carry here. And imagine if this Cogmore is sat at the back of this fight, still with damage going down. H2K lose this fight horrendously because of how low they already were. But the fact that he's not there, he was taken out first, means that Splyce actually come out ahead.
Oh, Odoan is getting dove here. The Durand taunt comes out, and Wonder's tanking all the damage with Skarl. Took a little longer than I expected, but Splyce, they even up the kill game, 5-5, and they shut down Odo.
I was perhaps a little quick on my estimation of Galio. That was a significant amount of damage that was done in that fight. 3,000 damage by Senkux. Still has a good amount of potential, because he's got that Iceborne. Come on.
So I want to quickly talk a little about some more stats, which you know I love, Stress.
Fantastic.
How many times have H2K and Splyce played this year?
This year, so...
I'll tell you.
Nah, okay.
I'll tell you. 7.
Yeah.
How many games have Splyce won? ding, 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 ding,
One.
ding, ding. I'm seeing audience members throwing up 2, 3,
One.
1, 4. You're all wrong. It's 7-0 in favor of H2K. And across all 7 games, H2K have picked up 16 dragons to 1 for Splyce and 8 barons
Well,
to
there's a fight
0
coming now. We gotta focus
from
on this.
Splyce. Wonder is trying to win the first 2017 game for Splyce against H2K. Will this be the fight that turns it round? Shockwave is sidestepped as Cobby's got himself a double. Che's able to escape with his life as the tower forces Splyce away. Senkux goes down, but his teleport still remains. 1 for 2 in favor of Splyce. And they're making strides in game 2.
Split-second damage out of Cobby took Febiven before the shockwave animation completed. Febiven died. Cobby would almost certainly have been caught by that. He was just within the radius. And look, this fight starts by the fact that Yanko's clearing a ward, doesn't respect the fact that Splyce are looking for a fight here. Wonder is coming up through the bottom side here. Maokai ultimate started very early and very far back on in the fight. I wonder whether they could have actually held that from Trashy even longer. Splyce perhaps at ends in this fight. You can see there the shockwave not quite connecting because Febiven had died. Splyce a little messier than they would have liked here. I wonder if that Maokai ultimate had been available, but still, there's the damage from the Cogmore. Pair it with that Pled, Splyce can take these team fights very quickly.
Yeah, especially because that Rage Blade making such a big difference. Megatron Cloak picked up for Cobby as well as that attack speed dagger. So big item break points across the board. And you know that gold lead that H2K had built up, that padding of safety, it is starting to get melted away, but H2K is still Splyce's kryptonite. 7-0 all year long. Splyce will need to pick up a monumental late game fight here to win this game.
They have the tools to do it. You mentioned Rage Blade. The reason it is strong on Cogmore, that Gwinsu's Rage, where it doubles the on-hit effects, paired with Bio-Arcane Barrage is just ridiculous. You're just able to shred right through the Blade of the Rune King as well. All of these anti-tank facilities on Cogmore just completely accentuates it.
And it also makes helps them for Baron if they want to set up now. Definitely going to be faster. So Mickey's already thrown down the Glacial Fissure. This is a little bit messy. Let's keep our eyes on Cobby. He's off on the sideline as the Equalizer burns Splyce's behinds. Wonder teleported into the middle of an H2K melee, and he's forced to run away. Nothing really happened there.
But Splyce still have charge, and here they go, looking for Odo Omni. They actually peel back away because, look, H2K were committing towards the Baron at the same time, and Splyce recognized it. Now Splyce are going to turn. They have the heroic entrance still available. Kled is on the bottom side with no teleport. Rumble is on the way. This is a very weird sequence of events, but look, Senkux is trying to catch them out.
All right, Winds of War, that's going to tag Nuclear and H2K. Senkux holds on to the Justice Punch and the Taunt. This is a high-pressure situation. H2K saving Odo's life by threatening the Baron. But Splyce weren't able to get there quickly enough, and now Splyce are sieging on the mid lane. Body Slam interrupts Senkux's retreat, and H2K think they have a shot at an engage. Flash is available for Jankos, and the explosive cast will come up soon.
And Jankos has actually built quite effectively against this Splyce composition, or at least however he perceives it. The Adaptive Helm comes out, a very unorthodox item for a Gragas to build out of the jungler. The reason for it, of course, it reduces repeat magic damage effects like the Cogmore W, the shred that comes on it. So he's trying to minimize the damage that comes out of Cobby, and we're talking about on-hits. Wit's End comes through as well. Cobby's like, just get me attack speed, get me on-hit items, and he even protects him a little bit with that magic resist as well, just in case he gets caught by a straight shockwave.
Well, Vebiven's got himself a Void Staff as well. Vebiven has got himself a Void Staff. So the high damage team fights are up 6 kills to 7 at 32 minutes, and the game is now even. A 2,000 gold or 1,500 gold difference at this stage is next to irrelevant. It does not mean a lot. We need to look at the items. So keep casting your eyes to the bottom of your screen and see where those power differences are. Void Staff Hourglass for Odo, versus the Goggles Stone Plate for Wonder, for example.
And it's the 80 carries on H2K's side that is actually scarily close to coming up to the damage potential as well. Look, that's a Last Whisper looking for the completed armor penetration item, likely Lord Dominic's that will come through here. And that means Caitlyn is as big of a factor in these team fights, so H2K will have damage as well. Now Senkuk's caught by the pillar. But it's a bit of a standoff here between these two teams. They cannot commit to an engage. Every time Wonder's trying to cut through the back, trying to get into the back line of H2K, but H2K drift up towards this Baron where they have the vision control. They're trying to play within their own safe territory.
Such a great interaction as Che interrupted that Justice Punch, but also the pings from H2K. Every time Wonder steps across a ward, pings from H2K, they peel away. Baron is the big target, while Splyce are split up. Their team comp is simply not as powerful, and H2K trying to keep them, trying to keep things chaotic, trying to keep Splyce from grouping as a 5-man team. And
without using that Maokai early, the ultimate early like we have seen a couple of times, it's difficult for Splyce to start the fight, but Wonder goes in.
All right, bear trap on a rope. That tags up Oda Wonder. The hourglass we talked about a little while ago. Defensive flash from Wonder. His skull has already been popped. Here comes Yankos. Wonder's the target of the heroic entrance, but he's taken down by Nuclear. Now Splyce are running for their lives. The Pillar of Ice slows down the retreat, and Senkux gets shut down. Max Law with a smile on his face as he's waiting to take to the stage. Splyce, they lose the fight, and now they might lose the Baron.
H2K will get the Baron from this, and when we get the replay, I want our observer team to actually zoom out further, because as much as the team fight is necessary out of H2K, we need to see Cobby's pathing as well. That is what meant that Splyce could not take this fight, so a little bit of a zoom out is what we need on this one as H2K retreat from the Baron.
For the 9th time this year, H2K get a Baron.
Here we go. So, Cobby, as he comes down into this fight, the fight starts and he positions himself on the small path between Raptors and the river. This means he'd have to flash to get to safety, but he doesn't have it available. He walks all the way around, no damage for the entirety of this fight, and he is the single damage threat with no way into this fight, and Splyce have nothing to do but crumble in front of H2K's strong team fighting.
And again, H2K are pulling Splyce around. If the last 4 minutes of gameplay, H2K have threatened Baron Dance. Cobby on Cogmore dealt less damage than Mickey on Braum, for goodness sake. 190 to 220, and that's probably 1 or 2 Rs. That's it. So, like, a huge credit to H2K for this style and this level of control, and also preventing Splyce from getting this comp to work.
Oh, here comes another fight. Splyce looking to go.
Nuclear's the target with point and click, just as I'm praising H2K. Defensive flash from Nuclear. He's now under threat from Wonder. Defensive equalizer comes down, and they've lost the 80 carry. H2K in full retreat. Cobby's taking a lot of damage and down to 50% HP. Che and Yankos trying to back away. Wonder's waddling forward without Skull, trying to build up that rage bar. Cobby flashes forward, gets a couple autos before the Pillar of Ice zones him away. Odo comes out of Hourglass, and Wonder's taken down. Senkux is going low, and Cobby is running for his life. H2K have won.
Oh,
he got Pillar of Ice, and Cobby is roasted alive by H2K.
Very difficult fight out of Splyce. They kept trying to move forward, but H2K back away, try and disengage. This is what we were talking about, disengage style against tanks. Trashy uses the ultimate early for another team fight to try and get it started, and H2K could not get, well, they didn't get caught. Splyce couldn't catch them out because, look, Splyce were relying only on the charge. There's no Righteous Glory, no Talisman of Ascension, no movement speed to get Splyce close enough to H2K to take them down.
Oh, H2K just peeling backwards, despite what looked like a good start catching Nuclear.
Look at this. If Trashy has Righteous Glory, he pops it and runs into this fight, but he has to ult from all the way back here. This ultimate tool is fantastic at getting Cobby's damage out later in the fight. Trashy was basically dead at the beginning here. And look, Cobby, now he's turning the damage on. But again, positions himself behind the tower, no auto attack, still under threat, trying to get into the fight. But again, nothing, no auto attacks. Now the damage comes out. It's only these periodic amounts of damage that can come through. He's now scared of a shockwave here. He doesn't want to tread further forward. He's out of mana himself, but the shockwave isn't there. There is no shockwave. The pillar lands. Cobby had flashed forward aggressively earlier. He spelt his own doom, and triple kill for H2K means they're likely to extend this to 8-0 on the year for wins against Splyce.
Such a good performance from H2K. Febiven, 8,000 damage. While we're in the replay, H2K took yet another dragon. That's 2 oceans now, sustain themselves up. And, you know, I'm so glad you mentioned that Nature's Grass from Trashy, because it has felt like a few times this game we've questioned its usage. Something that a lot of people will be doing, but you cannot question Che and Jankos this series. Che's Thresh in the previous game, Jankos Gragas, both games he's 2-0-9. And just really good performance from them, and as a team as well.
One thing we didn't really look at is the impact, actually, that Che has been having in fights. We're talking about Che, he's now got the Zeke's Convergence. So now I want to see how that slowing field actually affects the team fights, because if Cobby can't reposition in fights himself, then that's another reason that he's going to get caught out. Still no flash, remember. Splyce, one last-ditch attempt with one very early Nature's Grasp again.
All right, catches a few people, but simply not enough time. That did not surprise anybody. And H2K, with their 10,000 gold lead, 5,000 of which they earned in a Baron power play, they're now sieging the top tower. Wonder's got access to charge. That's at least one more attempt. The inhibitor turret is falling. There's 5 Yordle snap traps that need to get bypassed by Splyce. And again, they're still just looking for that opportunity.
And the fact that Trashy's using it so far away, yes, of course, the longer it goes, the more it snares, but you need to be in the fight first. If H2K see it coming, they're just going to dodge away from it. It's not going to have the impact. You've got to hit Righteous Glory, get in the fight, get the fight started, and then ult. It's so easily readable.
Yeah, the base is broken. H2K with super minions in the top lane. They need to back and respond to the bottom wave. Bottom lane rather, as there's a very large wave of minions pushing in. Now, if there is one tiny solace here on the side of Splyce, they have wave clear for days. With the Galio, with the Hurricane Cogmore, that percentage damage against those supers. But the problem is they have to defend 2 lanes of super minions. Both mid and top is broken.
This has been a good performance out of H2K. I've been critical about Splyce for the way they played it. I want to turn it on its head. Talk about how H2K have been doing a good job. You mentioned Jankos and Che looking for the engages. Nuclear has farmed his way up to being very influential in this game. Even picked up a mortal reminder to try and deny some of this lifesteal that's coming through on the key targets like Cobby. Trashy obviously has to stay in fights as well himself, and it means that H2K now have more threats on their side than Splyce can actually deal with.
Yeah.
A prolonged fight where maybe Nuclear dies early, which is unlikely, is the only thing Splyce can hope for to win this game.
All right, let's see if they can find their targets. Splyce now trying to group up. Wonder and Trashy, they're lingering on the outskirts of the fight, but they're stood on top of an H2K ward. All that information in favor of H2K. The last inhibitor turret standing in the bottom lane is now under siege.
And even the experience favors H2K here. They're levels ahead of what Splyce are bringing. Maokai ultimate again. Charge comes in. Last chance for Splyce.
All right, let's see. No CC connected just yet. It's only on the front line. Trashy's inside the fight.
That's a great
Rose entrance comes down. Where is Cobby? Cobby's trying to put the damage down, but he can't burn through quickly enough. Jankos still got 1,000 hit points. Odo jumps forward, flashes back, gets a kill, gets out. Cobby takes a gigantic burst of damage before he's forced to flash. Odo 1 there with a double kill. Senkat manages to sidestep a trap, only to get shot in the back of the head by Nuclear. And the last man standing is the only man Splyce had to defend. Cobby runs to the base as H2K are destroying the Nexus. It was a drawn-out game 2, but H2K are dominating Splyce for the 8th time in the 2017 season. H2K greater than Splyce.
That means for now, H2K assume total control of number 1 in Group B. They now lead the standings, and Splyce will be fought for now fighting for those 2nd and 3rd spots. It's not locked yet. but H2K just put a big win on that board to make sure they can try and get that playoff bye.
So important. 7 series wins, 3 losses. And then you look at Splyce, they're now 6-4. But more importantly, Stress, and something we're going to talk a lot more about over the next few weeks, a +10 game difference for H2K. Unicorns +5, Splyce now +1. That is a very, very big difference and a big safety net when it comes to those all-important tiebreakers.
Of course, those tiebreakers will kick in if the series difference is identical between two teams. So that's what we have to look for as we get to week 10. But for now, a series win for H2K is the important thing, and they look very good doing it, biding their time in game 2, but crushing through game 1.
If you had shown me the 2 team comps and said who would win team fights at 40 minutes, 10 times out of 10, I would not say H2K's comp. With Maokai, with Galio, with Braum, there's so much power that it just didn't feel like that power was ever combined in the right way.
But I think we look at it and there's an Orianna, a Caitlyn, these big picks that at 40 minutes do just find themselves in team fights. You've got the Gragas frontline, he's got Stoneplate, he itemized in response to the Cogmore threat from Splyce. And Splyce just didn't have enough threats available to output damage at the end of the team fights that as soon as the flash is gone from Colby, it's almost impossible for them to fight.
Yeah, it really, really was. And I don't think we can take anything away from H2K. They really, they demonstrated every single area of the game they had in their mastery. And H2K, they're going to celebrate after taking down their group opponent Splyce. Let's head to the analyst desk for a closer look at just how they did it.
Well, first, praise where praise is due to H2K and obviously also to the Fischio, because for one last time, he put his faith in H2K. And are you more impressed with the first snowball win or with how they won a second game, which was very competitive and 2 strong comps?
Why not both?
Yeah, porque no los dos. I think I agree.
There we go. The first game, great snowballing, beautiful setup. Second game, sure, they were challenged. They were put in big late game team fights. That's where in the past they faltered. And one of the things I highlighted about H2K coming into the day was with this meta here where a lot of teams are playing teamfight comps versus each other, the fact that you can actually now draft teamfight yourself and therefore not just fall apart in the late game, you can actually play big late game team fights evenly. It allows H2K to use the early game advantage they tend to get to actually also win late game.
And leverage. We are setting up for an interview, of course, with one of the winners, but that gives us time to review some of the team fights because it was a very close fight.
A lot of team fights.
Close fights overall. First, let's start with one of Splyce because you wanted to highlight specifically the setup by Splyce before we get into this one.
Yeah, so what Splyce wants to do with their comp is play what we normally consider the 1-4 setup, where Wonder is split pushing in the side lane all the time and trying to challenge the Rumble 1v1. The cool thing is that Senkux also runs teleport, so he can actually join. He can go to the side lane with Galio ulti, just roam down and assist this Kled here in getting these kills and then still join the fight. So the reason we pause it here is because H2K now actually makes quite a massive mistake after losing their mid laner, because what happens when you lose your top laner is you also will lose the mid lane priority, because the enemy team now can send 5 members to mid lane, and you need to respect that. So what you're going to see when we run the clip now is that Senkux and Wonder will walk straight to mid, and H2K is still kind of hopping around the mid lane, actually for no reason. Then a step forward as well. You know Wonder is going to show up behind you. Orane at this point here didn't have teleport ready, and it is a really good punish from Splyce. You could see instantly as they walk towards mid lane, Senkux just walks straight forward. He's like, I will fight no matter what here, because I know we have 5 members and there's only 4 from H2K. And that's something we don't see from every team in Europe. But when you lose the side lane, you need to give up your pressure in mid lane, because otherwise the enemy team can always roam into that mid lane and have more members than you and just engage on you.
This is what we saw here. In the end, H2K did turn it around late game. And as we take a look at these next fights in just a second, I want to look at it with an eye of, obviously, Kog'Maw on the enemy comp, Braum for late game. Great. But you wanted to kind of point out during the fights that the lack of engage on the side of Splyce is also a problem.
I mean, that's kind of the thing with the comp is the comp is fantastic at protecting the AD carry and kite back and just have him hit the first target in front of him every single time. And then the goal is you kill the enemy front line before they can kill your front line. And then obviously when Gragas is dead, when Rumble is dead, you can get onto Orianna really easily. You can get onto the back line of H2K. We take a look at one of the fights here. Splyce, they step forward to try and engage the fight, but then suddenly realize, wait a minute, we can't actually fully engage on the backline here of Nuclear and Febiven. So now Copy ends up finding himself first overextended. He has to kite away, means he's now stepping away from his team. So this entire fight, Copy didn't deal any damage, almost. Next one, Splyce are behind. They're feeling like we need to start a fight here. So they're trying to engage. They use, of course, the long-range Maokai ulti for the longer duration on the snare. They try and dive the backline of H2K, but once again, their composition is built to kite back. So Copy gets minimal amount of damage in these fights because he's not able to just sit and shoot a target in front of him. He has to step forward all the time. And you can see how H2K actually still feeling very safe at this point with a full HP Orianna and a great turnaround once Splyce oversteps. And I really like how H2K's late game comp, which was also strong in the late game, actually understood that they could both go for the backline of Splyce and try and kill Copy with Rumble ulti and Gragas, but they could also just step back as well. Walk away from Copy. Don't let Copy hit you. You can just keep walking back and you can actually hit the front line of Splyce. And also apparently get a fidget spinner.
Yeah, and an orange fidget spinner because he is Dutch after all. And whilst deciding this player of the series...
Is it a Fnatic one he has right there?
Is it? Oh, it might be. In deciding the player of the series, each of us who had a vote had a different vote because every player of H2K stepped up. In the end, it went to Febiven, but with that win, H2K are now the top team in Group B. Let's head over to Pyra, who is ready with their top laner.
Thank you very much, Shox. I am joined by Oda Wamne, and you guys secured yourselves a 2-0 victory. It looked like, even though you crushed in game one, there were some chances for Splyce to get back into it. Why do you think that was?
It's because we tried so much to press our advantage. We were so ahead because we had 5 towers at one point. And even though they got like 4-man Jarvan EQs and Orianna ults, we were just so ahead that we didn't really care. So we could play the team fights more reckless because even though they get like those combos off, we can always just flash out or just adapt in the middle of the team fight because they don't have that one shot anymore that you need to be really scared of.
Yeah, it seemed like in a lot of those fights you were really just able to push them back even with bad positioning. And I'm glad you mentioned pushing your advantage, especially in game one. You guys were doing that incredibly well. Was that a big focus point coming into this week to be able to try and finish games out when you had a lead?
I mean, you just need to kind of play clean. We didn't really have a focus, hey, we need to push our advantages this much. We just kind of played safe in a way so we don't give opportunities for the opponents to just kind of get back in the game. But when we play that well, when you play that safe, and you can just push your lead super easy because they don't have any opportunities if your carries just play aggressive.
Yeah, well, I want to dive a little deeper into the game now because you played Rumble twice this week. You had to go up against a Camille in one game. It seemed like there were a lot of carries across the board in the top lane. And last week, when we first saw patch 7.14 hit the Rift, it was all about those tanks up top. So what's really changed in your mind?
I mean, I think even last week there was just a lot more Cho'Gath and stuff. So I think nothing much has changed. It's just when we play against Splyce, we play against a team that doesn't have priority on tank stop because Wonder wants to play side lane a lot and just kind of play this 1-3 on or 1-4 style. So it's just kind of that's why there was no focus on the tanks this series because Rumble is really good into the carries and I just thought that it's the best fit against all of his champion pool.
Well, certainly worked out well against Splyce. And now, as a result, you guys own the top spot in Group B. I know Deficio put you in the top at the end of the season standings for that group. How do you feel about your place? Do you think that you guys really are the best team in that group right now?
I mean, I think we are. I think it's just we are always struggling with our inconsistencies. Every good team has a lot of inconsistencies, but I think just our win-loss ratio as well, we have, I think, 5 games over you all, and they're tied with us. So I think that just, even though we're tied with them, that just shows that our victories are cleaner and our defeats are way closer than they are.
Well, it's always a good place to be, and that's also happy to be on top. So I'm looking forward to see how it goes, and thanks for joining me, Odo.
Thank you.
All right. Well, for that, we're going to go ahead and send it to a quick break. But